Thanks for having me. I mean, after hours, this is like this is my spot. This is exactly where I need to be and be talking to people about what they're doing after hours for sure.
I love it. And just so you know, we've talked about this. This is really, I'm asking for a friend tonight. This has nothing to do with me, you know.
Understood. Quotes for a friend. All good.
I know. Absolutely. So you got to help us. We need a lot of help. So have humans always struggled with sleep, or is this kind of a new thing that you're seeing?
So it depends upon how you describe the word new. Here's what I'll tell you is, there was this guy quite a while back who messed it up for everyone. His name was Thomas Edison. He invented this thing called the light bulb. Before that, the rate of insomnia was minuscule. Very few people had massive sleep problems. But as soon as the light bulb came around, it kind of messed things up
How
for
dare you?
just about everyone.
Oh boy. So now have you seen in all of your work, have you seen this getting worse or kind of like it's always been since you've been working
Great
in your
question.
field?
Here's what I'll tell you is I've definitely seen an influx at particular times, specifically particular times of high stress. A good example of that was 9/11. Right after 9/11, I had a flood of people who were wanting to talk with me about why they weren't sleeping so well. So what I would tell you is while light in and of itself, and that's kind of why I highlighted Thomas Edison before, is a major factor in making people sleep worse. And just to be clear, we're really talking primarily about insomnia there. We're not necessarily talking about the biological sleep problems like sleep apnea, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome. Those have different reasons why they've started to scale over time. But when we're talking about stress really does affect everyone, and it appears to affect everyone's sleep. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some people out there who are pretty immune to this stuff who can kind of, click off their brain and go to bed. But, Kristi, when we think about it, it's interesting. Like, think about it like this. When you get in bed after hours at night, what's going on? Well, it's probably the first time of day that nobody's talking to you, that nobody's asking you for something. And so all of the thoughts come flooding in from the day. And I mean, look, you can't turn on the television without getting stressed out. It's unbelievable just the amount of stress that's currently going on. I would also argue social media hasn't helped this situation at all. Because of the way these algorithms work, it just feeds you more and more of the data and content that you're looking for. And if that content is stimulating, I know plenty of people who lose an hour like that. They're like, hey, I'm just going to check social media before I go to bed. It's 10:30. Before they know it, it's midnight, and they're all juiced up, after, reading this or watching that or those types of things. So I think we're not doing ourselves a lot of favors historically. What I like to try to tell people is you need runway to land the plane. Okay, like I can't get much more basic than that. And so having a time subscribed before lights out to help slow you down, I think could be helpful. But to answer your question, generally speaking, from an insomnia or a kind of sleep problem perspective, I'd say stress, increased light, things like that. Looking at it on the sleep apnea side of things, look, at least here in the United States, 75% of people are overweight, 50% of people are obese. We know that while sleep apnea is not just a heavy person's disorder, that is absolutely a contributing factor. And so we're starting to see more of that certainly occur. Then if you start to look at maybe age-related sleep disorders, things like restless leg syndrome, we know that as the population ages, different things can go on from a nervous system standpoint, and so we see a much higher prevalence there. So the news isn't great,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, I have to say, I like what you said about going down that social media rabbit hole, because I guarantee you, our viewers and our listeners, all of them are going like, that's right. I'm a little guilty of that. So a couple of things, and I do want to talk at some point about daylight savings time
Sure,
and
happy to
arch
talk about it.
nemesis of Kristi K. But yeah, how do you feel? Let's do it right now. How do you feel
Sure.
about daylight savings time and sort of that shifting? Because boy, does that mess up my sleep habits. Not to mention my pets.
Yeah,
The cats in the
absolutely. So
house are all
number
messed
one,
up.
it's a highly antiquated idea. Okay, so it's old idea, right? This is really, so to be clear, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine does not agree with the idea of daylight saving. In fact, the time period that we're in now, which is what we call standard time, is where we should be year round.
Thank you.
The
I feel
basics,
validated.
yeah, the basics of it are, and the way I think everybody should think about it is nobody should wake up in the dark. Okay, like that's just not how our bodies were designed to work. Our bodies were designed to arise and awaken when light, natural light, sunlight is coming up. And so when we look at, the daylight saving of it all, that was really more for a time period where the Industrial Revolution was occurring. Again, Edison and the light bulb. By the way, that also is about the same time that overtime became a new word in the modern industry. And so people could get paid more for working at hours when their body shouldn't be actually doing those types of activities. So there's a monetary incentive, I think, that falls into play there. But as a general guideline, number one, it's not a great idea. I've been on many committees talking to many people about why we should stay in the world of standard time, because quite frankly, it's healthier.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I am a night owl. I've said it 1,000 times on the show, probably. I love to be up at night. And it's what you said earlier. My mind is clearer. Everybody's quiet. There's no noise in the house. And it's just a lovely thing. And so let me ask you this. If I'm a night owl, and not to mention I might get in a little bit of a panic mode if somebody says, hey, can you meet me for 7 o'clock coffee in the morning? I get like, whoa, that's a little early for me. But if I'm a night owl, can I kind of switch that internal clock of mine to suddenly be a morning person and say, want to have coffee at 7 a.m. with my friends and colleagues?
Great question. It's a great question. And you are speaking to probably the person that knows more about this particular topic than most. So what you're talking about is something called your chronotype. Many of your audience members may not have heard of the word chronotype, but they have heard of the normal vernacular of it, which is early bird versus night owl. And you've used that term a few times, right? So what I call night owls is I call them wolves. So I actually created an entire system because what we've discovered is, just to answer your question briefly, no, you cannot change. This is genetic, okay? I can actually show you where on the human genome, which is an area called the PER3 area, where we would see something called a single nucleotide polymorphism. I get it, that's a big word. What this means is where your building blocks flipped one way, you're a night owl. If it flips another way, you're an early bird. If it's where it's supposed to be, you're in the middle. My big discovery was I discovered a fourth chronotype, genetically speaking. And I make the argument for it in my book, The Power of When, W-H-E-N, of when to do things, right? And so for you, there's no universe you should be meeting people at 7 a.m. for a cup of coffee.
Okay, so there's this thing with wearable devices now. We all have them.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
So the analytics that are on there kind of freak me out sometimes because I'm thinking, I must have gotten 3 hours of sleep out of the 8 hours I was in bed. What's important to look at when we look at sort of some of the analytics? Okay, we have REM sleep, deep sleep. What is it that's
Let's
important?
break it
How much, break it down for us.
So number one, there is not a wearable on the market that is accurate. I want to repeat that. There is not a wearable on the market that is accurate for depth of sleep. So unless the way we measure depth of sleep is from brain waves, we can't get brain waves from a ring or a wrist strap. What we have to do is use the information that we can get as what we call a proxy. Meaning if you're like, let's say we can measure heart rate from a ring, which you can do quite accurately, then they have to guess, okay, well, I think heart rate during REM sleep is going to be this, and I think heart rate during deep sleep is going to be this. So if your heart rate is this, then maybe you're in deep sleep or maybe you're in REM sleep. I want to be very, very clear. The best of the best that's on the market now, here's what they're good at measuring. They can tell you when you fall asleep and they can tell you when you wake up. That's about it. So
I mean, I can do that.
Yeah, so can I. All you have to do is think about it. So again, what we're looking at here is what is the real usability of the wearables out there. Now, I want to be clear, there are some things that could be valuable in terms of the data that you can get. But you've hit on something that I think is very, very important that we should educate your audience on, which is an idea called orthosomnia. So this is a situation where you are so enmeshed in your data, it freaks you out and then you don't sleep well, right? That is clearly not the concept that we're trying to go for here.
No,
right?
but I guarantee you it happens to almost
Oh,
everyone who's wearing a wearable device at one point
yeah.
or
I mean,
another.
I can't count the number of people who turn to me and say, "Whoop, hijacked my day," right? Where they're like, hey, I thought I slept great. I got a score of a 36. And then, to be fair, Kristi, it turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy for some people. They're like, oh, well, I didn't sleep well, so I probably shouldn't work out. I didn't sleep well. I'm going to get into a fight with my boss. Like, these things can be very influential into our brains. So I want to give everybody a way to utilize their data that is both accurate and effective, okay? So number one, don't look at your data every day. I know it's very tempting. Everybody wants to wake up and see what their sleep score is. That's about the stupidest idea I've ever heard. What people should do is when you wake up in the morning, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? That is more important than just about any other metric, because it'll tell you exactly. You are your own best doctor. Okay, some ring or some wrist strap isn't going to do this. You know how you feel when you wake up in the morning, and so that's really number one. What your daily judgment of your sleep should be. It should be your perception of how you feel when you wake up. Within maybe 1 or 2 minutes, kind of let the cobwebs clear a little bit. But you want to do it before you have a cup of coffee, because that can absolutely influence kind of how you think about it. Number two, look at your data once a week. And what you're looking at are the trends, okay? I can't count the number of people who say, Dr. Breus, my ring says I only got 14 minutes of deep sleep. Am I gonna die? I don't know if you're gonna die or not. I mean, you're gonna die, but it's probably not from that. Like, here's the thing is, so what I do is I say, well, what did you do the night before? And they said, 14 minutes. I said, how about the night before? They say 18 minutes. I said, you know what? You're fine. They look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, look, there's no way you're only getting 18 minutes of sleep. However, the device is being consistently inaccurate. We want to look at it when it goes from 14 minutes to 407. That's the day I want to know what happened that night, because that's going to give us more information. So what we're looking for, what we call in science, is the delta, or the difference from the baseline of what's kind of normally going on. So for folks out there, if you're looking at a ring or a wrist or whatever, the best thing to really do, look at it across a week, look for the trends. If it looks consistent, you're fine. By the way, sleep is flexible. You don't get the same amount of each stage every single night. You just don't. There's a tremendous amount of variability, anywhere from 15 to 20% of the night. You got to think about it like this. Here's what happens right as you're falling asleep, is your brain kind of scans your whole body, right? And it says to itself, okay, body's had damage because it worked out, maybe a little bit of strain on my musculature. I had a big emotional conversation with somebody, so I need a little bit more REM sleep. Because of these things that in my workout, I might need a little bit more deep sleep. And so the variation in the amount of each stage, and by the way, the intensity of each stage, changes every single night. So if I'm being fair, I'm not sure there's a device out there that could ever measure all of this accurately at once. And so that's why we have to kind of trust our bodies. Now, people do a lot of really stupid things to mess up their sleep, right? Like
Let's hear
having
about that. I
coffee
want
after
that.
dinner,
Yeah.
right? Or having alcohol too close to bedtime, right? Like there's a whole host of things that will mess up your sleep. But if I'm being honest, I'm pretty sure people know most of those.
Okay, let's go down that list. Give us some of the obvious ones that we know, but maybe we need to hear from you, sleep doctor, and all the things that you're doing in terms of research.
Yeah. So here's what I'll tell you. Let me frame it more on what you can do to change your sleep now. So the number one tip that I give everyone, and I want everybody to hear this, and it's not going to make sense until I explain the whole thing, is to wake up at the same time 7 days a week. I am sure everybody was expecting something different here. Let me explain the biology. When you wake up in the morning, sunlight hits your eye, and you have a special cell in your eye that turns off the melatonin faucet in your head, okay? It sets a timer for almost exactly 14 hours later. Technically, this is called the melatonin phase response curve. You don't need to know that, but what you need to know is if I'm consistently waking up at 6, then at 8 p.m. is when melatonin begins to be produced. It takes 90 minutes to get up and in. I start to get sleepy around 10. I'm falling asleep around 10:30. But if it's Saturday and I don't wake up at 6, but I decide to sleep in until 8, Melatonin doesn't start at 8 like it was doing when I woke up at 6. It starts 2 hours later. So what I am describing is the time that you wake up directly determines when your biology wants to go to bed and then produces melatonin. So if people get nothing else from this entire conversation, if all you did was wake up at the same time 7 days a week, within 3 weeks, the quality of your sleep will improve by about 20-30%. So that's number one. Number two, caffeine. So a lot of people think, oh, caffeine just doesn't affect me, Michael. I can drink coffee up until right before going to bed and fall asleep. It may be true, but the truth of the matter is you're probably so damn sleep deprived that your body is forcing you into sleep. And if I look at the quality of the sleep that you're getting, it's crap, right? Caffeine is a stimulant. It keeps you out of REM sleep. It keeps you out of deep sleep. This is not the thing that you want to have on board. Here's the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is caffeine has what's called a half-life, meaning it takes a certain amount of time for half of the caffeine to be eliminated from your system, right? That half-life is between 6 and 8 hours, okay? And as we get older, our metabolic process begins to slow, which means it can take even longer as we get older, right? And so step number 2 in my 5-step guide that I'm going to give everyone is to stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Now, you notice I didn't say get rid of caffeine altogether, because at that point, everybody's just getting out of here. Like, they're like, forget it, Michael. There's no universe I'm going to do that, right? But you need to be thoughtful about when you stop caffeine. There's also a bit of data looking at when you should start caffeine, right? And so usually I tell people, hey, raise your hand if caffeine is the first liquid that crosses your lips in the morning. Now, you don't have to answer that, Kristi. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but many of your listeners probably would say yes. This is highly problematic, and let me explain why. Sleep in and of itself is a dehydrative event. You lose almost a full liter of water just from the humidity in your breath, breathing all night long, okay? Caffeine is a diuretic. It sucks water out of you. If you are pounding the coffee before you're hydrating, what you're ending up doing is losing more water from your system. And there is not one single system in the human body that functions well when dehydrated. Not a single one. So I always tell people you want to hydrate before you caffeinate. Give yourself 90 minutes after you wake up before you have your first cup of coffee. Then you want to bookend it by stopping by 2 p.m. So I'm giving you a space in which to have your caffeine. But again, you want to be thoughtful about the caffeine that you're having. You know, have your caffeine earlier in the day so that way it starts to work itself out of your system. Maybe even move to a secondary source of caffeine. So instead of, for example, having coffee, maybe towards lunch you turn to something like matcha, which has got a lower caffeine content, or a decaffeinated tea or something along those lines to kind of bring your body sort of down with that. But I would say in that respect, caffeine is definitely one of the biggest problems. The third.
Now, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Okay, Michael, is chocolate included in the caffeine category?
This is such an important question.
If you say yes, I don't know what I'm going to do.
So I'll tell you a story. So I've been married for 26 years, and my wife eats chocolate every single day, okay, without fail. And she's this big, so I hate her. I mean, I don't hate her, but you know what I'm saying. And she told me a long time ago that if I start telling people that they can't have chocolate, that we would be divorced. To be clear, we've been married for 26 years. So chocolate is off. However, if you eat a 3-pound Hershey bar that you got for Christmas in an evening, you ain't gonna do too well, right? And so limit the amount of chocolate, but absolutely you can have chocolate, but you probably don't want to have a ton of chocolate, and you probably want it to be higher on the cacao side of things and more of a dark chocolate, which appears to be a little bit healthier, less sugar, less processed, things of that nature. All right, you ready for step 3?
I am.
Alcohol. So this is a big one. Lots and lots of people, by the way, alcohol is the single biggest sleep aid in the world. More people drink themselves to sleep than any other substance that is used, and it's terrible for deep sleep. Now, deep sleep is stage 3-4 sleep. It's also called deep sleep. It's also called slow wave sleep. So in case people have heard a bunch of different things, those are all the same thing. And to be clear, deep sleep is your physical restoration, okay? This is kind of like bringing your body into the body shop and getting the dents and the dinks and the scratches kind of pulled out. And true cellular repair occurs during stage 3, 4, or deep sleep. Alcohol destroys stage 3, 4 sleep, absolutely obliterates it. It does make you feel sleepy, which gives you some stage 1 and 2 to fall asleep, but you really have a difficult time getting into the deeper stages of sleep, which can be very, very problematic. So when you're looking at something like alcohol, how close you have it to lights out is the big determining factor, and how much you have. So I have a method that I've taught people that works really, really well. So let's say you want to have a glass of wine or 2 with dinner. I don't have a problem with that. Here's how you would want to do something like that. Let's say you're eating dinner at 6:30, 7 o'clock, seems like a reasonable time. You have your first glass of wine with the appetizer in the beginning of the meal. Then you want to substitute in a glass of water, right? Because you want to do wine, then water, right? Number one, it fills up your stomach so you don't over-drink by mistake, but also wine is a diuretic as well. Once you break the seal, you're peeing all night long. So you want to put hydration back into the system. When you finish your glass of water, now you can move to your second glass of wine, right?
All right.
I don't have a problem with that. Then you move on to your second glass of water. Now you stop, okay? You need 3 hours before lights out. It takes the average human approximately 1 hour to digest 1 alcoholic beverage. So we got 2 glasses of wine. I'm giving you 3 hours merely because I don't know the alcohol content. It could be a spirit, it could be wine, whatever you have. But this is the rule, is 2 drinks interspersed with water with a 3-hour no drinking time before lights out. So if you started at 7, you're done with your meal by 8, and your bedtime's 11, you're good to go.
Okay, I like that. All right, so what's our next one? Another step?
Step number 4 has to do with exercise.
Okay.
The single best way to improve your overall sleep quality has to do with daily exercise. Now, I want to be clear, you don't have to run a marathon, okay? But you got to walk, you got to move, you got to do something out there. Cardio seems to work very, very well for a lot of people. 20, 25 minutes of cardio. And again, it's not like you have to do it full steam ahead, but you want to get your body moving. There's a lot of data to suggest that this improves overall sleep quality. However, there's a warning here, and that's why it's called step number 4, is because you want to stop exercise 4 hours before bed. What ends up happening is if you do cardio, it increases your core body temperature. This makes it incredibly difficult to fall asleep. Your core body temperature actually, from a biology standpoint, begins to drop right around 10:30. Well, if you exercised at 9 o'clock at night and did a spin class or something like that, whoosh, your core body temperature is way high up there. And that's going to make it very difficult to sleep. Now, I will also tell you that right now there's a trend of cold plunges. You've probably heard of these before, where people get into, 50-degree water and, their lips are turning blue and all this insanity, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I've done a couple cold plunges myself. They're pretty interesting, but man, they're alerting. So what I would say is, people always say, well, if I do a spin class and then I jump into a cold plunge, will that kind of suffice in terms of lowering my core body temperature? It'll definitely lower it some, but I have to be honest with you, when you get into that water and it's 50 degrees, it is alerting and it is very difficult to fall back asleep. So do me a favor, exercise daily, but don't exercise within 4 hours of bedtime. My last step number 5, has to do with waking up. So when people wake up in the morning, a lot of people kind of don't do it right. Number 1, remember, wake up at the same time 7 days a week. But what I like people to do is every single morning, I have them do what I call the 3 15s. So the first 15 is sit on the edge of your bed, both feet on the ground, and take 15 deep breaths. This is merely to wake up your respiratory system and to bring you present, right? Because you're breathing, you're thinking, and you want to be thinking about long, deep breaths, diaphragmatic breathing, breath work. There's a lot of different breath work apps out there that people can do. I love those. I think those are great things to do. Step number 2, hydrate. You want to drink 15 ounces of water. I want to be clear, you don't just slam it, okay? Because all that ends up happening is, and a lot of people do this all the time, they're like, I'm just trying to get it in, Michael. It's like, no. When you drink that fast, it's not going in, it's going through, right? There's no absorption. Think about it, Kristi, like a sponge, right? So if you walk out to your kitchen in the morning and there's a sponge sitting on the sink, like it's hard as a rock, like you can bang nails with that thing, right? And if you put it under the faucet and you open the faucet completely open, like you were guzzling water, what happens? The water hits it and splashes off, right? But if you just open it up a little bit like you're sipping water and a few drops hit, guess what happens? It absorbs, it forms, and now you have a useful tool. We are the sponge, okay? So we want to sip, not gulp our water in the morning, but 15 ounces is a good place to start. The final 15 is to get 15 minutes of sunshine. Get your butt outside. If you can, put your feet on the earth and get some direct sunlight. 15 minutes is the exact amount of time that most people require for their body to produce vitamin D. Vitamin D is a circadian pacemaker. Also, that sunshine turns off that melatonin faucet in your brain, so it's a double good thing for you to do.
Okay, a couple questions on some of the steps. First of all, in the water drinking category, lemon water, how is that in the morning? First thing.
I got no problems with lemon water. Add a little citrus, perfect.
Okay, second of all, asking for a friend, if you wake up and you feel like you got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
And you've been in bed for 8 hours and you've done everything right and you haven't had a drink and you haven't, what's happening? What's going
good
on?
Question. So we're not talking about a sleep quantity issue, we're talking about a sleep quality issue at this point. If you've gotten 7 hours and you've done everything right, you didn't drink alcohol before bed, your caffeine stopped at noon or 2 o'clock, and you're following all the Dr. Breus rules, you probably want to get a sleep test done.
It's also time to get a new mattress or a new pillow. Talk to us about that. No, as a sleep doctor, you have a wellness company, which I love that you tie sleep to wellness and well-being. I think that's awesome. And I know you have recommendations in terms of products and things, a mattress, in terms of pillows, or maybe it's other things within the bedroom, lighting, whatever it may be, that can really help us out.
Absolutely. So there's 2 kind of schools of thought here. One is let's look at the overall sleep environment. The other is let's look at what we call a sleep system, right? So a sleep system is mattress, pillow, sheets, right? So the things that you're directly are affecting or touching your body. But we've also got the environment, right? So, if somebody's playing heavy metal right next door to you all night long, you're probably not going to sleep very well. So environment plays a role, but let's focus on the sleep system first, and then we can go into the environmental aspects. So when we look at the sleep system, you're absolutely right. People are not exchanging these products as often as they should. Now, I'll tell you, there's a couple of kind of hard and fast rules that I try to explain to people. So number 1, let's talk about pillows. So most people don't realize this, but you should be changing your pillow out every 18 months to 2.5 years, okay? Because here's the thing, is the average head is about 9 pounds. The structural integrity of the pillow itself, with an 8 to 9 pound weight on it for 7, 8, 9 hours a night, is going to simply crush, and you're not going to have the integrity of keeping your head in the spot it's supposed to be in. I think of pillows as kind of like a bed for your head, right? And so it depends all on what position you start out in. Now, I get it, everybody's a multi-positional sleeper and nobody seems to stay in the same position all night long, or at least very few people do. And so when you're looking for a pillow, if you're a back sleeper, you want a very thin pillow, because if it's very high in what we call loft, it pushes your head all the way down and you can barely breathe. Also can increase snoring, increase sleep apnea, probably not the best idea. So if you're a back sleeper, you want a reasonably thin pillow. If you're a side sleeper, however, it's almost the opposite, because I've got to make up for room between my ear and let's pretend the mattress is over here. This is a pretty big space that I've got to make up for here. And so you're going to want to have a pillow that's got a lot of loft if you happen to be a side sleeper. My personal recommendation, what I personally like and what I use is I like pillows that have a zipper on the side and I can pull the stuffing in or out so I can actually create a personalized version of the pillow for myself. And this is exactly what I recommend to many of my patients. The way I know that somebody definitely has a bad pillow is if they've got neck or upper shoulder pain, that's almost always a pillow. If it's low back pain, it's almost always a mattress. Let's get into mattresses for a second because that's a fairly decent sized purchase and people need to be thoughtful when they're doing it. So there's a lot of different mattresses on the market, like a ton. And so when people are out there kind of looking around and thinking for them, basically you want to have, number one, the general recommendation is a medium firm mattress. You don't want a mattress that's a marshmallow because it doesn't provide support. What happens is a mattress has two functions. It has support and it has comfort. Support is where it keeps your spine completely aligned across the product. We want that to happen because if your spine is going all wonky, then none of the musculature that's attached to it can relax, and therefore none of the nutrition that can get into those muscles can get in there. So by having a bed that looks like a taco, it's definitely not going to be helpful for your spine. That's the support portion. The comfort portion is what keeps you in place all night long. I personally like hybrid beds where the support function is based on springs or some type of spring type of technology, and then the upper layers are more foam based because that way you can move, your body can conform and move to that while still getting the support from the bottom. But folks out there need to be careful because memory foam sleeps hot. And so a lot of people, especially women going through menopause, this type of thing can be very, very uncomfortable. So you really want to be thoughtful about looking at these mattresses and try to get one that can help you stay what's called thermoneutral, meaning that it doesn't make you hot or it doesn't make you cold. Now, sheets also turn out to be important because a lot of people are out there buying like 2,000 thread count sheets. To be clear, you can't get more than 500 threads into a square inch. So a 2,000 thread count sheet is actually 4 sheets woven together, to be clear. And what ends up happening is you can't get any airflow through those. And so while it sounds really good, it's really stupid. What you're really looking for is a 500 thread count sheet for durability, but also one that allow for air to flow through it and maintain some level of thermoregulation. Last point on the sleep system is that they also make these things now called thermoregulatory devices. Now, people out there might have heard them. It's a topper that you can put underneath your sheet, and it can actually make you warm or make you cool.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, one final question, maybe two. Should we sleep with our significant others if they are snorers? And what does that do to our sleep?
So the answer to your question is yes, and it's bad. So why should you sleep with somebody who's snoring next to you? Because you need to bug the crap out of them until they get sleep tested, because they could have an underlying case of obstructive sleep apnea, which is an incredibly serious sleep disorder. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Most people who have sleep apnea, they don't think it's a big deal. They're like, what? I'm snoring. That's your problem. That's not my problem. No, in fact, it is the sleeper or the snorer's problem, because what ends up happening is snoring is just your airway is starting to become compromised, meaning you're not getting in the amount of air that you need. I want to be clear. Your brain functions on air as fuel. So you want to get as much of that in your system as you possibly can. So when you've got somebody who's snoring, does the elbow to the ribs, roll on your side work? A little bit, because what it does is it pulls the anatomy and all of the anatomy falls forward in the oral cavity, meaning your tongue moves forward and all of that. But if you've got somebody who snores next to you, number one, the data would suggest that you lose an hour of sleep a night at least. So that is highly problematic for you. But number two, that person's not going to be around very long, because when they do have undiagnosed sleep apnea and it is not treated for extended periods of time, there is a plethora of evidence that says they are on the road to a heart attack or a stroke. So if you really care about the person that's next to you, bug the crap out of them. Get one of those HSTs that we were just talking about a moment ago, and answer the question. If it turns out that they don't have sleep apnea, well, then maybe there's some other solutions that you can think about as far as snoring is concerned. There are internal nasal dilators, or things that can go in your nostril to open up the pipe a little bit. Nasal congestion turns out to be a really big one. But I want to be very, very clear. Mouth tape is a terrible idea. All right.
It just sounds like a terrible idea to me. You know what I'm saying?
Doesn't it? Didn't you just the common freaking sense would tell you that you're not supposed to tape your mouth shut ever, right?
No mouth tape.
But it's like on TikTok, I can't count the number of people who ask me this question. And by the way, a meta-analysis was just published showing that people have died from this. So, buyer beware. Anybody out there who sees mouth tape as a solution, you're an idiot.
Okay, I love this conversation. I could talk to you all night about this. Okay, what are 3 tips that you can leave our viewers and listeners with, where they can just start right now to get a better night of sleep and not wake up feeling like they have been hit by a truck, or that they didn't get any sleep when they have been in bed for 8 hours?
So number one, I think consider an HST is going to be something that people should definitely think about. It's so affordable at this stage of the game. A lot of times it's even covered by insurance. And I don't want people to worry that if you get a diagnosis of apnea, you're going to be stuck on a CPAP machine for the rest of your life, because that's the reason why nobody wants to get a sleep study, is because they're fearful of the treatment modality. I want to be very clear, there are a lot of different treatments out there, not even surgical ones, that can be very helpful. There are mouth guards. There are all sorts of different things, something that can go on your tongue, that can change your anatomy and help with that. So I think step number one, if you wake up and you feel like crap, is consider a sleep test. That would be step number one. Step number two, I think that, overall was my 5-step plan, right? Wake up at the same time every day, stop caffeine by 2 p.m., stop alcohol 3 hours before bed, stop cardio 4 hours before bed, and when you wake up in the morning, do the 3:15s.
Dr. Breus, where can our listeners and viewers find you on social media?
Sure. So it's not too hard. I'm at thesleepdoctor.com. Also, I have the same YouTube. I have the same Facebook. I have the same Instagram. So if people are interested there, if you're interested in a sleep test, go to sleepdoctor.com/Dr. Mike, and it'll bring you right to the area where you can order a sleep study. If you're interested in learning more about mattresses and pillows, just go to the search bar and type in best mattress. We come up very high in the search rankings, and we can really help you understand, because we do reviews on hundreds of products. And so I can kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were, and be able to get you to what you're kind of looking for.
I love that. We need that. And what about buying your books?
So my books are all available on Amazon. My newest book is called Sleep, Drink, Breathe. Wellness is Too Complicated, because I think wellness is too complicated. Like, what am I supposed to do? Have a green drink, do a cold plunge? Like, it's all crazy stuff. Like, if you just learn how to sleep, how to hydrate, and how to breathe, you are 75% the way there.
That's our next podcast, our next show, because
Sure.
That's a good topic. I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Breus, for being with me today and tonight on Kristi K's After Hours. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And I want to wish everybody out there sweet dreams.
Thank you.
Thank you to our underwriter, KeyBank. We love you. If you'd like to be a guest on Kristi K's After Hours, or have a topic and an expert you'd like to book, reach out to me via email or on LinkedIn at Kristi K. Hoffman, or on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Kristi K Media.